Hi everyone, it's Eliza back with another video. Today I'm talking about books that scare me. This was inspired by Catherine's video, also of the same title, about books that I am apprehensive to pick up and read for whatever reason that may be. So let's get into it. Also, please excuse the noisy birds outside. Let's start with a few of the classics that I've been wanting to read for a long time and haven't yet. And it's because I'm a little hesitant and wary and cautious that, first off, they're old. And so the language may be a bit tricky at times. Even though I speak fluent English, I am monolingual. It is my only one, and yet I read Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen and found that a little hard here and there. So I started listening via audiobook. Also anything by Jane Austen to start with. But these three in particular, I've been wanting to read forever, and they're classics, they're well known, they're kind of almost the first in their genre, perhaps you could say, or one of, and I'm a little scared. I kind of think of them like the Gothic trifecta: Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, Dracula by Bram Stoker, and Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I've heard wonderful things about all of them, but I have Frankenstein and Rebecca on my shelves, but I'm a little scared. Not because of the actual content, just because of what if I read them and am disappointed and I've built them up in my mind and then they're not as good as I hope and think they're going to be. But also, what if they're hard to read because of the language? At the beginning of the year, I did start Frankenstein. I was going to do a buddy read with my housemate and then we were moving house. So it was not the right time. I got about 30 pages in. I wasn't really enjoying it, but I've heard that after that initial part it gets better. So we'll see. Along the same vein, I've also got Wuthering Heights and Jane Eyre. These in my mind, I know they're not, but in my mind, they are basically interchangeable. I do know the difference, but both of these to me are also in the same kind of bracket of classics, language, maybe high hopes that will get squashed. And I'm a sensitive soul, so I don't want to be disappointed. Along a different vein, we've got The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. Because what if it's really depressing? Because that's what lots of people have said. Well, especially considering how her life ended. I'm quite sensitive as well to what I read or watch. And I don't want to feel sad if I don't have to. She did the fig tree analogy about standing back looking at your life, and it has all these figs on this tree, and each fig represents a different life path or choice that you could take, whether it's profession or parenthood or travel or creative things, and you're paralyzed by which to choose. As you're thinking about what you want to do, the figs start rotting and dropping off the tree until it's bare. So that's a bit bleak, isn't it? And yet kind of scarily relatable. So that's one of the reasons why it scares me, because I like to question things and ponder things and think I'm making the right decision. But also, you know, you can't always make the right decision, you just have to make the decision you make right. That's The Bell Jar. More classics I've got Fahrenheit 451 and Slaughterhouse-Five. Is Slaughterhouse-Five a classic? I think it is. Same kind of reason. Been meaning to read them forever and haven't. And then it just kind of builds up this anticipation and wariness almost, rather than excitement, because it's kind of like the time has maybe passed for when I would have read them. But if I read these books 10 years ago, I was in a very different place in life and I probably would have viewed them very differently to now. Towards the end, I'll also mention some scary books that I have read and conquered and what I thought of them, and if these were any of the issues that arose with those. The next one Catherine also had on her list, which was Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a non-fiction novel about human connection to nature and what we can learn from nature, and how Indigenous peoples have connected with and protected and used nature. I think that's the basic gist. I'm very driven by what I'm in the mood for with non-fiction books. I generally read non-fiction books more via audio than physically, because I find it easier to absorb Even though, as I've mentioned before, I'm not really an auditory learner, but I think it just helps me get started and get the push and over the hump. And that's the other thing with non-fiction books that can scare me, is that I'm like, oh, so much information to take in. And you think, what if I don't absorb it all? What if I forget the important points? What if I listen to a whole book and can't recall anything? But I definitely, with non-fiction at least, recall more via audio than reading physically. With fiction, I recall more when I read it physically than audio. And I enjoy it more that way as well in general. Just me things. Does anyone relate? Let me know in the comments. Another one, okay, this is going down a different track, is The Artist's Way. The Artist's Way is a book that is kind of self-help / helping you work through how to practice your creativity. It was recommended to me by a psychic. I'm a bit scared of The Artist's Way because I feel it will be a little bit confronting to address my own creativity head on, because I can be a big perfectionist to the point where I put all this work in and then I scrap it if it doesn't meet my own expectation. And this isn't external expectations or anything, this is just my own, because I want to feel 100% or 110% proud of what I put out. Which is why I put out so few YouTube videos, guys, because I keep the constant planning and thinking about it, but then the actual execution of it. So, yeah, The Artist's Way, I feel like, will bring up a lot of things. Like, I've wanted to be a writer forever. My perfectionism gets in the way of me achieving things I want to do. So I feel like The Artist's Way, even though it will be really positive, I feel like you've got to sit with it at the right time for it to work its magic on you. So that's why I'm scared of The Artist's Way. Oh, and then we've got Lessons in Chemistry. This has been recommended to me so much and very highly rated and reviewed by people I know personally, as well as on BookTube and everything. And when things are really highly, like really highly reviewed and recommended and everything to me, I'm a bit wary. I don't know why. It's almost like there's a little inner snob in me being like, why do all these people like it so much? There has to be something wrong. I don't know what it is, which just sounds nonsensical, but that's where my brain goes. So many people have raved about it that I feel both excited and obliged almost to read it. I think it's maybe the feeling obliged to read it, me being like, no, I just want to read what I want when I want. That's the trouble with being in the bookish community and keeping tabs of what people are enjoying and what you see pop up over and over, because everything that becomes popular doesn't mean it's not good, but it doesn't necessarily mean I will like it either. I'm very wary of all the hype in case it's overhyped for me personally. And I think that's with a lot of these too, in a way, especially including the classics, because classics are classics for a reason, usually. I mean, they can be very male, pale and stale. But another one is The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I think because it's so big. I loved The Secret History, even though it's kind of pretentious and all this, but that's part of the point in my mind. And she wrote both of them, and The Secret History was excellent and is also like 600 pages. I just think maybe I am worried I won't like The Goldfinch as much, and it's a bit of a different kind of story. Like many of these, it's on my bookshelf waiting for me. It'll be there when I'm ready. Another big fat book is The Square of Sevens, which also is on my shelf, which also I haven't read yet. Story of my life. My mum bought The Square of Sevens for me, I think because she saw like the sort of tarot card art and thought I would really like it, which she is correct. And one of my friends, one of my old housemates, also read it and recommended it to me. I don't actually remember what it's about. It's historical fiction. That was someone skidding outside because it's wet and rainy. But they're okay, there was no crash sound. I have had a crash outside my house before. Someone flipped their car over upside down, everyone was fine. And then they drove away. Where was I up to? Square of Sevens. Highly recommended. I've kind of forgotten what it's about, but I've got it. Then we have a different kind of scary book. A few that I've got on the list are Misogynation, Invisible Women, and Men Who Hate Women. I fear that these books will confirm things that I already know and am aware of, and that they will make me very angry and sad, and that it will just be a bit too real. So that's all I'm going to say on those. Other books that scare me, anything written by Neil Gaiman, as an example, J.K. Rowling. People probably know about the J.K. stuff. Scary because she wrote Harry Potter, which in many ways was about marginalized groups and their treatment and stuff. But for Neil Gaiman, someone who again wrote very sensitive, creative, in touch with people and magic things, and allegedly has done some terrible things to women, including while his son was in the room. So that is very concerning, and I will not be reading anything more from Neil Gaiman, which is a shame because I really enjoyed Coraline. I mean, it's a shame in many ways. Also, side note, Drake wrote some poetry. Okay, Drake wrote some poetry. This is a sidestep. Heard bits and pieces and it's not good. I'm not a big poet or into reading a lot of poetry. A lot of the time I feel like I don't get it, even though I might appreciate the beauty of it. But Drake's poetry was very stream of consciousness, he said, and it was mostly blank pages. Makes sense. Speaking of people ruining things, The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. Because I loved The Handmaid's Tale. 5 out of 5. I've reread it multiple times. Feel like the red is appropriate. I'm scared because I've heard people really not love The Testaments based on what it does with the story. But maybe I can treat The Testaments kind of like how I treat And Just Like That to Sex and the City. Because Sex and the City, loved it. It has its problems based on the time it was made, but love it. Then there were the 2 movies, hit and miss. Then there was And Just Like That, which at the time I'm filming this, it was announced within the last week that they're canning it, so everyone loves to hate on it. But I can think back to the Sex and the City series, and it's its own contained thing, and I kind of can willfully forget about the movies and the And Just Like That series spin-off thing if I want to. So maybe I can do that with The Handmaid's Tale if I read The Testaments and it's terrible and kind of ruins it. Maybe I can just forget and be willfully ignorant and choose to have amnesia and get over it and it's fine. Maybe. Can you hear the rain outside? ASMR. Bitter, batter, bitter, batter, bitter, batter. It's actually really pretty outside with the rain. I've got all my windows open. It's very nice. It's nice to be sitting inside nice and dry. I went out earlier and it was not a fun time. So now onto some of those scary books that I have read and how it went. Confronting books that are worthwhile to read while also making me angry. I have read Hood Feminism, how feminism and the Black community, talking about America specifically, how they intersect. And there were chapters, for example, on hunger and guns. The gun chapter was a lot. As someone who is Australian and does not have to deal with that, I don't know how people live in America. And I don't mean like, I don't know how people stay in America. Why wouldn't you just leave if you're not happy? Because obviously, if you have the privileges of money and everything, you could if you wanted to, but most people can't just like uproot their lives and just go live somewhere else. I'm pretty sure it was written in 2020, and at that time the statistics in America said that guns were the second largest cause of death for children. Now, guns are the number 1 cause. Yeah, it makes me really upset every time there's something on the news, because in Australia, like, we see what's going on with America with gun violence and school shootings and everything. Hood Feminism was a really great book. I also listened via audiobook as it was narrated by the author, and a great tool to further educate myself. It scared me before reading about what I would think and find out, and it scared me after, but it was very worthwhile and I recommend. some sci-fi books that scared me that I read. One I didn't know would scare me. When you read, it scares you. That was Annie Bot. I talked about that a little bit in my winter tag video. If you want to know more, I kind of want to make my own video fully for Annie Bot because there's so many things I can say. It's about the treatment of women by men, but for female robots by men who buy them. The female robots have no autonomy and are set up and manufactured and produced and designed to please their owner, who has them as a companion, you know? Yeah. Little Eyes by Samantha Schweblin also is a great sci-fi novel that is scary and confronting in terms of the concept. You can buy these little plushy toy things that follow you around in your house, or you can be one of the people who controls how that little toy interacts with the owner. There's the two sides. It's like the toy's in the middle of the person being watched, and then there's a person on the other side of the toy who's controlling it, who is watching. And it's very interesting about the interactions between the two, and they're aware of each other, but they only interact through the little plushy toy thing. Oh, and it brings up a whole lot of questions about human nature and ethics of technology in that way, and how it can be misused for awful reasons. I read it like 5 years ago and I still think about it. I kind of want to reread it. It's weird. I'm not usually a sci-fi girl, but I am. Apparently, other books that I've tackled that I previously thought were scary but managed to read are 1984, which I read in the last couple of months. I didn't love this book. I can see why it was very important and has been historically as like the first kind of dystopian novel, the first big widely known one, at least anyway. I read it. Do I recommend it? Depends what you want to look at. If you want to analyze it, for sure. If you want to read it for the sake of enjoyment, no. I read it and enjoyed parts of it, and it hooked me in certain parts, and other bits were just like huge blobs of exposition. I was like, ugh. Meanwhile, The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, loved it. Very pretentious, sometimes waffled on a little bit, but excellent. I feel like that's one that I would definitely reread. As mentioned previously, The Secret History, because of the dark subject matter and also because it was over 600 pages, but managed it and loved it. And now I'm currently listening via audiobook to I Am Malala, which is another one of the books that I was a bit scared to read because it might be a little bit confronting with all the things that you can learn, but I don't want to be ignorant and I've wanted to read it forever. So I'm finally listening to it. It kind of makes you realize how little you know, because there's so much history to know about the world and different parts of the world and their customs and traditions and how different groups of people are treated or relate to each other. So many factors, but it's not so scary once I started. Thanks for joining me for yet another video. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and comment below any of the books that you think are scary that you haven't read yet, or ones that you once thought were scary and did read, and what you thought of them. This is Eliza signing off, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.